This CMS training video will walk you through each of the steps for entering initial case information about a friend into CMS. You start, as you always do, with the home screen. You can go to any web browser and type in houston.cmssvdp.org, and it will take you to your login. Use your login credentials to log into CMS, go to your home screen, and go down to case intake. This is a situation where someone has contacted your conference, either through your helpline or coming into your office or pantry, and has requested assistance. You are getting basic information from them so that you can then assign them to a caseworker to enter the casework information and the type of assistance. This is strictly the initial case intake. You start off by putting their first and last name. You will notice that next to the last name is a red asterisk. For this initial screen, all you really need is the last name, because CMS will check to see if that friend is already established in the CMS system from prior assistance. But it's always best to put a first and last name, to put a telephone number, and to put an address. We also try to get an email address, since it's very easy to communicate through email, while sometimes, because of work requirements, people aren't able to answer their telephone right away. Later on in CMS, after the casework is done, after the home visit, they'll ask you to put additional information, namely gender and ethnicity, marital status, date of birth. So if you get this information during your initial case intake, it's good to put it in. But for now, we're going to do the first and last name, the telephone number, which does not have to be formatted. It will format it for you. An email address, and an address. In selecting the state, a shortcut is to hit the letter T twice, and it'll take you to Texas. You'll notice there are a number of other fields that you can complete. And again, you don't have to complete these fields at this time, and it will not ask you to complete many of these fields, such as the church, whether or not they speak only Spanish, or homeless, or veteran, or other aid. You are certainly welcome to add that information, but it's not required. So after you've put this initial information in that you've received from the friend, you go to this button on the top right-hand side and select Next. It will now search to see if anybody is in the system with this telephone number. And you'll see right now that there is somebody named Joe Blow that has the same telephone number. Usually, if there's an exact match, it will be on the top line. If there are other closely spelled or sounding names, it'll include that afterwards. And anything you see in gray is typically a household member that has been found in the system. And in this case, it's searching the telephone number. So this is a search that's showing you where that telephone number appears. It's also searching for the email address too. If you see an exact match, you can click on it. And if you look and if you see that it's the same person, you can go to this select button and select this person, and it will fill in the information for you. But in this particular case, we look at it, we see it's not the same person. It's somebody with the same name, but it's a different address, different phone number, and we believe it's a different person. So we hit the back button, and we now proceed to the next screen. So you go up to Next, click that button. It'll now check addresses to see if anybody else is at 1234 Westheimer. And oftentimes in these large apartment complexes, you'll see a number of people. And again, it's just giving you an opportunity to see if someone is already entered into the system. If someone is in the system, they have a permanent client record that gets updated each time the person comes in for assistance. And what we are doing right now is we're doing a case intake for a new case record. So it gives you an opportunity to search to see if the friend is already in the system. Again, we look at this and we see that there is not an exact match. We select next. Same thing now, it's checking by last name. We don't see an exact match. We select next. And it's asking us if we want to proceed to case intake. These first few screens were strictly an inquiry. We were just looking to see if we could identify this person in the database. So since there are no open cases associated with this client profile, we can then select next to proceed to case intake. And for case intake, the first thing they will ask, first of all, if the zip code is outside of your conference, if it's outside of your area, it will tell you this in CMS, and it will let you know what conference actually covers that zip code. If you have decided that we are going to help this friend from your conference, select next. They will ask for household information. So this is anybody, whether it's children, other relatives, roommates, spouses that are in the household. You don't repeat the name of the friend. It's strictly other people in the household. Right now, if you notice, the asterisk only asks for a first and last name and for a gender. Later on, they are going to ask for a date of birth, relationship, and the ethnicity. So if you know it, it's good to put it in. Now, in this case, let's say that Jane Blow is a child, and all you know from the initial home visit is that the child is 3 years old. So you just type 3 in there, and CMS will then find the year, the date of birth. You indicate whether it's a male or female, what the relationship is, and the ethnicity if you know it. Select next. And this is where the basic request is entered. So first of all, there's a drop-down menu for the various categories. So if someone is coming to you, for example, for assistance with rent, you select rent, mortgage, or shelter. I always put my initials so that it's clear who's doing the initial case intake, and then very briefly indicate what the client needs and any information that you think would be helpful to whoever is assigning this case to a Vincentian for a home visit. Typically, this is not a lengthy explanation. Typically, it's very brief, just indicating the basic need. If the friend also is asking for help with something else, for example, food or utilities, you can also enter that. You can enter as many types of requests that there are. Once you've entered the request, you select next. It'll ask you if the friend has received assistance from other organizations. You'll notice that nothing has an asterisk by it, so you do not have to put it. That is entirely up to your conference if you want to add this information. Many conferences just select next and go past this screen altogether. You are now looking at eligibility. It says this appears to be a new client and therefore no case history is available. So it's first looking to see if there's case history of past assistance. If there was, down here, you have 2 accordions, and one of them would say case history, and you could click on it. This one that says past assistance, and it says client appears to be a new client. There's no record, but if there had been prior assistance, you could get a listing of what that assistance would be or has been. So go back to case, and now you're ready to select next, and it will have a pop-up that says submit this case for caseworker assignment. This action cannot be undone. You say yes, you're ready for caseworker assignment. At this point, depending on how your conference operates, you can either stop the case intake process and simply go back to your home menu and do other work on CMS or log off. If your conference wants the intake volunteer to assign someone to the case, then you can assign a caseworker. If your conference uses case managers, you can select a case manager. And if you've assigned it this way, you select this button that says assign. If, for example, you get to this screen and you want to take the case yourself, or you have coordinated with your conference where the case intake person will also be the caseworker, you can use this accept button. The accept button will appoint you as the primary caseworker, and it will then show up in your assigned cases. But again, if someone else is going to be assigning the caseworker, then strictly go back to home. You don't need to fill out any of this information. And when you go back to home, it asks you for unsaved changes. In this case, since I tried to put somebody in, it's asking me about that. But when you go back to home, you'll see down here, they say unassigned cases for caseworker assignment. And this case shows up. So the next person in the conference who is in charge of assigning the cases for casework will open it, and then they will have the opportunity to assign who's going to be the case manager, who's going to be the secondary, or if you're doing it yourself, again, you can do accept. So hopefully you have found this helpful. We will also have a separate video on entering casework information that will explain to you what to input into CMS after you have had the home visit. Thank you very much.